Hello everybody, today we're going to be looking at boundaries and borders in our 3D Unity game. Okay, so right here I just have a very simple scene. I can run it, if my computer would allow me to run it. Okay, so pretty much it just allows us to move forward, back, left, right. And I've put a green area and a red area. So as you can see, I'm just moving this player around, very simple. Here's what the code looks like for this. Pause if you want to read it. Okay, so there's one very simple way to add borders, and that's to actually create a 3D object, like a real wall. So let's go here, and let's create a 3D object. Let's make it a cube. And so let's manipulate the scale values. So now it looks like a real wall. Right now, since we don't have the rigid body attached, and let's rename this to border. So right now, since we don't have the rigid body component attached to our player, this blue cube, the player that we control, would be able to go straight through this wall as if it weren't there. So let's activate, or let's add the rigid body. Okay, so now that we have rigid body attached to our player, it will not be able to move through this wall. It will bump into it and not be able to pass. Obviously, it will be able to go around. When I was testing this earlier, um, coming into contact with this wall sometimes led the cube, our player, to spin around, which would mess up the controls, the movement controls. So for now, I'm going to freeze rotation on the X, Y, and Z. Okay, so let's run this. Or, okay, let's not run this yet. Let's say you don't want this big white wall. The way, maybe you want it to just be transparent. You just want to restrict player movement without them actually being able to see it. So you can go here and deactivate mesh render. So now as you can see, let me drag this up to make it easier to see. In our game view down here, you can't see anything, it's invisible. But in our scene, you can see the outline of our border. So let's run this program and see what would happen. Okay, so as you can see, I can still move back, forward, left, right. But if I was to run here, as you can see, I can't move through this. My player gets stuck. Obviously, you can go around, but you still get stuck on this side too. If you want to completely entrap the player, then you can just put, four borders around them and completely trap them in. This is just for demonstration, so you can see that this method works. But let's say you don't want to do that. Let's say you want to make it through code. Restrict the player movement through code. So let's delete the border. Okay, so let's go to our code. Okay, so what we need to do is restrict the player movement. So how, let's think about it. How can we do that? If we want, we can check to make sure. So void update, it checks every time, once per frame. So just constantly checking it. So let's say that the position is outside the range we want it to be in. We should set their position back to inside of our border. Okay, so let me show you what that means if that was confusing. So let's make a variable here, public float, and then let's name this the x range. So this will be the range, how far our player can travel in the x direction. So first step, let's make an if statement. So let's say um, if the transform dot position, oops, sorry, dot x is greater than x range, and I'll explain what this means after I write everything. Um, let's transform the position to new vector 3, and since we use vector 3, we can store an x, y, and z. So let's set it back to x range, okay? And then we want to keep the y and the z position the same. We don't want to modify that. Okay, so let's see what this code does. Okay, so let's try running. Oh, also, we need to set a variable equal to x range. So let's just set this equal to 5 for now. So this is going to be how far our player can move in the x direction. So let's try this. So as you can see, our player gets completely stopped here. I'm holding down D, and he will not move any further. So, but you can go this way. So why is that? Okay, so for our code, we've only set a barrier on one x range. So as you can see here, our player can't move past x equals 5. See how the position x is 5? Okay, so let's go back to our code. Now that we've seen this demonstration, I feel like I can give a better explanation. Okay, so we're checking to see if the player is moving outside the boundary. Okay, so if their position is greater than x range, so let's say that their position is 6, their x position is 6, and we want their x position to go no higher than 5. That'll be our boundary, 5. So if this is true, then this code will run. So what we want to do is change the player's position to be inside the x range as they try and move outside the x range. So what we have here is we manipulate the x position of the player to x range. So we change their x position to 5, so they can't go any higher than 5. And then we want to keep the same position for the y and z. We don't want our player to be uh, teleporting on these axes. Okay, so we want to keep these constant. We don't want to change these. Okay, so how can you uh, make one on the other side? So I'm not going to do that right now, but so pretty much what you do is you flip this sign, correct? And then you make this negative x range, and then you make this negative x range too. If you think about it, it's just like the same thing, just on the opposite side, on the negative x. Okay, so let's make another one for y. So we can make public float, or not y, sorry, z range, because our player's not moving, up and down. They're just moving left, right, forward, back. Okay, so let's say if transform, or we need parentheses. So if the player's position on the z-axis is greater than z range, or let's try making this one negative to show you guys what it's like. Oh, put a comma here on accident. Yeah, I don't know what's happened here with these. Okay, so we want to, like last time, we want to set the player's position as they try and move outside of our range back inside of our range. So we want to transform the player's position. Geez, my typing is not very good. So we want to keep their x, correct? We want to keep their x value. So transform dot position dot, oh my god, dot x, and then transform dot position dot y. So we want to keep these two the same. Can't spell position. And then we want to change we want to keep their y inside. So if this, or keep their z, my apologies. So we want to keep their z inside the range. So let's set it equal to negative z range. Now why do we put the negative? Well, let's think about it. So let's say, here, let me initialize these variables. Alright, let me set a value equal to these variables. Okay, so let's say z range is 5, and x range is 5 too. So we have a perfect square. So let's say that we don't want them to move outside the negative z range. So why do we put negative z? Alright, well, so our z range is 5, okay? In order to make it prevent them from going past negative 5, so going too far backwards, then we need to change this to a negative 5, not just a positive 5. Okay, so, and then also here, let me show you what would happen. So if we were to put just a positive z range here, make sure to save your code, Control S. So let's go head back into the Unity. Okay, so let's run this code. So what should happen is if we move backwards and hit our Z range, or negative Z range, we should teleport here. As you can see, we go backwards and we can move left and come here, and it will put us right here in this corner. Okay? So this teleports us because Z range is equal to 5. So pretty much what this code is saying right here with this positive Z range is we want to change the position of the player as they head outside negative Z range. So let's say the player's Z position is negative 6. Okay? This will transform their position to be within our boundaries again, but it will transform their position to be at positive Z range. So it will be at positive 5. So let's put a negative here, and let's run this program. As you can see, he doesn't teleport anymore, and he's restricted. And we're in this corner, we can't move. Alright, so I want to thank you guys all for watching. I'm sorry if this was confusing. Please leave a comment, and I'll respond to you. Please like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. And let me know what other tutorials, any basic concepts that you guys want me to cover, I can cover very easily. So thank you guys for watching.